Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our politics panel on a former Alberta Premier campaigning for the federal NDP. But first, fight to the finish.
Going forward, every time a politician or bureaucrat comes up with an idea to spend more money, they will need to find the exact amount or more in savings.
Unlike Pierre Poilievre, I've actually managed economies before. I've actually managed budgets before.
With just days remaining in the federal election, parties have now released costed platforms for the Liberals. That includes $130 billion in new spending on defence, healthcare, high-speed rail in Alberta. The Conservatives plan to slash the deficit by 70%, relying on cuts and economic growth projections. Joining us now, Nik Nanos, Chief Data Scientist and founder of Nanos Research. Nik, good to see you, sir. Welcome back.
Great to join you and all your viewers.
All right. Your daily tracking poll through the election has largely had the Liberals leading the Conservatives in that 4, 5, 6, 7-point range. How much is that tightening up here in the late going?
Well, you know, what's interesting, Michael, is that the Liberals have had as much as a 10 or 11-point advantage over the course of the election. And now it's, you know, they're at 44, the Conservatives are around 39. So it's definitely tighter than it has been in the closing days of the campaign. But, you know, the thing is, there's still a significant number of people that are probably waiting till the end of the campaign and the election to make their final decision.
Now, the NDP did edge above 10% support in the wake of the debates, but today you have them back under 8%. What's your read on that?
Yeah, it looks like at least there was 2 or 3 days that were positive for Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats coming out of the French and the English debates, maybe because of his scrappiness. But coming out of the debates and now past the weekend, the holiday weekend, what we're seeing is the New Democrats down to 8% nationally. And actually, over the last 3 days, they're down almost 3 percentage points. So bad news for Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats. It was interesting. I thought maybe they might be picking up steam, but no. It's kind of like Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, 2 steps forward, two steps back for the New Democrats.
Okay, now the fact that the Liberals and Conservatives combined account for roughly 80% of support, what does that say about how far removed we might be from traditional voting patterns?
Wow, you know, the thing is about 83% of Canadians would vote for either the two front-running parties. And to put this into context, with the Conservatives at around 39%, Stephen Harper won a majority mandate with 39% support. So in any other kind of election that would be a regular election, if there is such a thing, the Conservatives at 39 would have been a big win. But the New Democrats are down. The Bloc Party is down. The People's Party is actually, that's also down from the last election. And people are flocking to the two frontrunners, I think, because there's a sense in this particular election, a lot like the free trade election, that whoever Canadians pick to lead the next government will be really important choice, and that it could have a material impact on the direction of the country. So a big focus on the two frontrunners right now.
Okay, so now is that as simple as boiling it down to the Trump effect, or could there be something longer term developing here?
Well, you know, I think Trump is part of what's going on. I think the other thing is that we have two very different choices between the frontrunners. You know, we have Mark Carney, who has been grafted on top of an unpopular Liberal Party because the Liberals were very unpopular. And you know what? The Liberal support is not being driven by the fact that people like the Liberals or like what they've seen in the last 10 years. It's being driven by Mark Carney. And then you have the Conservatives. Primarily, a lot of the Conservative support is driven by the fact that those voters want change. They want the Liberals out of power, and they see Pierre Poilievre as a vehicle for that. But what we're getting to is almost a situation where politics is looking a lot like what we see in south of the border, where there are two main parties and then some other parties, and Canadians, and in this case voters, being focused on the two frontrunners and thinking about who they'd like to form the government.
Okay, interesting point. Now, the fact so many have already voted in record numbers, 7.3 million at advanced polls over the long weekend. What kind of impact does that have on the work of pollsters like yourself, or even the interpretation of poll results moving forward?
Well, the good news is if people have voted, they're not going to be changing their mind. That's for sure. So that's the good news on this front. I think what it creates is a level of uncertainty related to what the voter turnout will be, because it looks like we might break a record or hit a high that we haven't seen in terms of voter turnout because of the focus on the election right now. And I think that's good news. The big question is who does that favor? Traditionally, higher voter turnout favors challengers like the Conservatives. And the other thing is advanced polling. The advanced polls usually favor the Conservatives because traditionally they have a pretty exceptional get out the vote effort when it comes to advanced polls. But we don't really know. So that's what likely the result is, but we don't really know because we don't really have a sense of how motivated Liberal voters are. We do know that Conservatives are highly motivated and highly organized. So it'll be interesting to see when the advanced polls are counted, the votes in those advanced polls, whether it favors one party or the other.
Attacks may be getting a bit more pointed now between the leaders, as we heard in the clip off the top. If that intensifies, how might that sway perceptions of the parties, of the leaders being reflected in the polls?
I think for both of the front-running parties, what they have to watch out for is an emerging sense that there's a problem with their platform, things don't add up, or that they don't make sense. So expect both of the front-runners to put pressure and to attack the other's platform as not workable, not feasible, maybe something is wrong with it, and in order to shake loose voters. But to put this into context, Michael, it'll only take, just a handful of percentage points from the Liberals to the Conservatives to change the dynamic of the game and what the shape of the next government might be. The challenge for the Conservatives is that tying the Liberals is not enough. They actually have to have higher voter support than the Liberals because in the prairie provinces, which is the Conservative heartland, they're way ahead, like 20, 21 points. And it's inefficient at converting into seats. And if you remember, Michael, in the last two elections, the Conservatives actually did get more Canadians to vote for them, but it was so spread out inefficiently that the Liberals were able to win more seats and form a government.
Okay, real quick, Nik, still a role for the undecided vote?
I don't know. The thing is, undecided vote is only at around 6 to 7%, not a lot. I think we should watch for the Conservatives, especially to try to persuade some male voters who are currently voting for the Liberals to switch back into the Conservative column. And you know what? It's not an unrealistic expectation because, let's face it, a few months back, the Liberals were at 20%. So there are a lot of new voters that weren't there at the end of last year that are now looking at the Liberals.
Okay. All right. We'll have to leave it there. As always, appreciate your time, Nik. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Nik Nanos, Chief Data Scientist and founder of Nanos Research.